What does a diversity and inclusion consultant do? Hey there, my name is Josh. I'm the founder of HR University. And in this lesson, we'll discuss what a DEI consultant does so you can get a better understanding of the role. But before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to our channel, and that way you don't miss any of our future lessons on how to become a great management professional. Now let's dive in. So we need to go over the essential DEI consultant responsibilities first. And since DEI consultants have a job objective to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace, they communicate and consult with business executives about DEI initiatives, serve as central DEI resources for employees, and work to ensure a diverse and inclusive workplace. And a DEI consultant works to establish a diverse company culture by developing strategic DEI plans that include the latest DEI industry trends. And they also implement and supervise all DEI initiatives in an organization. In addition to this, they assess the workplace's current diversity and inclusion environment and analyze the data collected during the assessments. Now let's go over each fundamental responsibility of DEI consultants in more detail. So the first responsibility is understanding the current state of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. The consultant gathers information and data about the company's culture, policies, and practices related to diversity and inclusion. And during this phase, a diversity and inclusion consultant may assess demographic data, collecting information about the company's employees, such as gender, race, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation, and disability status. And this data helps identify potential diversity gaps and areas for improvement. And next is reviewing policies and procedures related to diversity and inclusion. And this includes examining hiring practices, performance evaluation criteria, and promotion and career advancement opportunities. And next we have is gathering employee feedback through surveys, focus groups, or one-on-one interviews. And this feedback identifies specific areas of concerns or issues that employees have experienced related to diversity and inclusion. And next is examining workforce representation to determine whether certain groups are underrepresented or overrepresented in specific roles or departments. And finally, there's assessing the overall company culture and climate related to diversity and inclusion. And this includes examining the company's communication practices, leadership behavior, and employee engagement. And after assessing the current state of diversity and inclusion in a workplace, the next step is to analyze the collected data. And this analysis is essential to identify patterns, trends, and areas for improvement that guide the consultant's recommendations and strategy development. And here are some key areas that a diversity and inclusion consultant analyzes during this phase. So the consultant examines the demographic data to identify any gaps or disparities in the representation of various groups within the company. And for example, the consultant may determine that few women or people of color are in leadership roles, or that specific departments have a higher concentration of one particular group than others. Next, the consultant may review the company's policies and procedures related to diversity and inclusion and assess how well they align with the company's goals and objectives. And the consultant may identify policies that unintentionally create barriers to diversity or fail to address specific inclusion-related issues. Then the consultant may analyze employee feedback to identify recurring themes or concerns related to diversity and inclusion. And the consultant may look for patterns in the feedback, such as frequent complaints about the lack of opportunities for career advancement or concerns about the company's hiring practices. And after that, the consultant may analyze the company's workforce representation data to identify gaps or disparities in representation among different groups. And the consultant may look at the distribution of different groups across various departments or roles within the company. And finally, the consultant may assess a company culture and identify how it impacts diversity and inclusion. For example, the consultant may determine that the company's culture is not inclusive of employees with disabilities, or that certain groups feel excluded from social events or networking opportunities. And after analyzing the data, the DEI consultant develops a strategy for improving diversity and inclusion in the organization. And here are some key areas that a DEI consultant considers when developing a strategy. So the consultant works with the company to establish clear goals related to DEI. And these goals include increasing the representation of underrepresented groups in the workforce, improving the company's culture, and/or developing strategies to address specific issues. Next, the consultant will develop a comprehensive action plan outlining the company's steps to achieve its diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. The action plan may include strategies for recruiting and retaining diverse talent, improving employee engagement and communication, or developing training and education programs for employees. And the consultant will also recommend training and education programs for employees and leadership in order to promote diversity and inclusion within the organization. And these programs may include unconscious bias training, diversity and inclusion workshops, and cultural competency training. Additionally, the consultant develops new policies and procedures that promote diversity and inclusion. And these policies may include changes to the hiring process to increase diversity, creating new employee resource groups, or developing more flexible work arrangements. And finally, the strategy will consist of metrics and measurement tools to track progress toward diversity. And next, we have policy development. Policies are guidelines that outline the expectations, standards, and procedures related to diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And here are some key elements involved in policy development. The consultant reviews the company's existing diversity and inclusion policies to identify areas that need revision. And this involves identifying outdated, ineffective policies or inadvertently creating barriers to diversity and inclusion. And next, the consultant identifies gaps in the company's policies and procedures. For example, the consultant may discover that there is no policy to address discrimination or harassment based on sexual orientation. And based on assessing and identifying gaps, the consultant develops new policies that address the company's DEI needs. For example, the consultant may develop a policy on inclusive language and communication, or a policy that outlines the company's commitment to diversity in hiring. And implementing a diversity and inclusion strategy involves implementing the recommended policies, practices, and programs. And this process has several steps. And based on the findings from the assessment and analysis phase, the consultant will make several recommendations for improving diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And it's important to prioritize these recommendations based on their potential impact and feasibility of implementation. And next, consultants must communicate the action plan to all employees so that they understand why the changes are happening. And consultants do this through company-wide meetings, internal communications, and training sessions. And the final two steps of implementing a DEI strategy are providing training and tracking progress. Training is essential to a DEI strategy as it helps employees develop the knowledge, skills, and awareness needed to create a more inclusive workplace. And here are the key responsibilities of a DEI consultant during training. The consultant identifies the specific training needs of the company's employees. This involves gathering employee feedback through surveys or focus groups in order to understand their knowledge, attitudes, and experiences related to diversity and inclusion. And the consultant will create training materials tailored to the company's specific needs based on the needs assessment. And this includes developing training modules on unconscious bias, cultural competence, and inclusive communication. Next, the consultant delivers a training through various methods, including in-person sessions, webinars, or e-learning modules. And the consultant trains all employees or targeted groups such as managers or new hires. And finally, they provide ongoing support to employees after the training is over. And this involves providing resources such as reading materials, videos, or online discussion forums to reinforce the training content and encourage continued learning. And finally, we have tracking success and making adjustments. As mentioned, before implementing any diversity and inclusion initiatives, the consultant will work with the company in order to establish baseline metrics for measuring progress. And after implementation, consultants collect data to evaluate the effectiveness of the DEI efforts. And this involves gathering data through surveys, focus groups, or other data collection methods. And next, the consultant analyzes the data in order to determine whether diversity and inclusion initiatives have had the desired impact. And this involves comparing the data to the baseline metrics or industry benchmarks in order to evaluate the effectiveness of the initiatives. And after gathering data, the consultant will report the analysis results to the company's leadership team and employees, highlighting areas of success and areas for improvement. And the consultant also uses the data to develop new initiatives or adjust existing ones. And metrics and evaluation are an ongoing process, with regular check-ins to assess progress and update strategies. And this ensures that the company continuously improves its diversity and inclusion efforts and creates a better workplace. In conclusion here, a DEI consultant is vital in helping organizations create a more inclusive and equitable workplace. They create an environment where employees from all backgrounds thrive through their expertise in assessment, analysis, strategy development, policy development, implementation, training, and metrics and evaluation. And there we have it. You now have a better understanding of what a DEI consultant does. And if you feel like you have just that, make sure to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel so that we can keep up to date with everything it takes to become a great management professional and a great HR professional. And again, my name is Josh. I'm the founder of HR University here, and I'll go ahead and see you in some of our other lessons and videos. Cheers.